In this lesson, we are going to talk about slope-intercept form. First, let's talk about what the equation looks like. Y equals mx plus b. So the m stands for the slope. And you remember from our slope lesson that this is rise over run. And rise is up and down, run is left and right. The y-intercept is new, and this is where your line that you are graphing crosses over or intercepts the y-axis. Okay, so this is where line crosses y-axis. So if you need to pause the video to catch up with notes, you can pause the video now. I definitely recommend writing this stuff down because as we move on to different examples, this won't always be up on the screen because we'll need room for other things. Okay, so let's put one example on here on this page so you can see one example with the notes. So y equals, let's say, 2x plus, we'll say 1. Okay, so our y-intercept is the 1. It is the constant or the number that is by itself. And our slope is 2. Let's change that color. The slope is 2 because that's the number that's in front of the x. Now when we have slope is rise over run, so we really want it to be in a fraction. So when you have a whole number, all you need to do is put it over 1 because we know a whole number turned into a fraction would be over 1 because that doesn't change the value of it at all. Okay, so our first step is going to be to plot the y-intercept. So since that's where our line crosses the y-axis, which is right here, it's the one going up and down, we're just going to go from the origin, so from there, we're going to count up 1, 2. So that's where 2 is. And this would be our y-intercept. From there, we need to use our slope. Slope is rise over run, and in this case it's 2 over 1. So we're going to rise up 2 and over 1, which brings us to this point. So we plotted our y-intercept, then from the y-intercept we applied the slope. So since it was positive 2 over positive 1, that means to go up 2 spaces and over or to the right 1 space. Okay, and when you're done with that, you just make a line. You use a ruler so it's nice and straight. You really need it to be straight for it to be accurate. And you put arrows on either end of your line. And you're done. So here we have the equation y equals 1/4 x minus 2. So think about which one is your slope. And a lot of times I find it makes it easier if you pull the information out and label it like this. So our slope is 1/4 because it's the number right before the x, or the coefficient for x. We don't write the x as part of the slope though. The slope is just the 1/4. And then our y-intercept is -2. Remember, just like when we did combining like terms and we talked about how a subtraction sign is the positive or, well, negative sign for the term behind it, and an addition sign would be the positive symbol for the number after it. So the same still applies here. So y equals 1/4 x minus 2. We're going to look at that as a -2. And remember, our first step is to plot the y-intercept. So I start at the origin, and I find where the -2 is on the y-axis, which is the one going up and down. So if 0 is at the origin, then I have -1 is the first line underneath it, and -2 is the second one. So I'm going to plot my first point, or my y-axis, at -2. Now I need to use my slope. to find my next point. And on this graph, I can't actually get 4 over, so we'll just do the best we can. So we're going to go up 1, and then to the right 1, 2, 3, and the next point is off the graph. So I'm going to write it over on the side here. So you would go up 3 and over, or I'm sorry, up 1 and over 4. Get rid of those lines because you don't need to see them. So over here on the side would be our next line, or our next point, and then you use the ruler to make a line through your points. What you could also do, so that your line is accurate, is instead of putting it as close as you can go in the opposite direction both ways. So slope of 1/4, they're both positive, right? So that should mean up and to the right. It would be the same if you did both in the opposite direction. So if you did down and left, it's going to give you the same slope. So we could rise down 1 and to the left 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's where my point would be. So that's the way that you should really handle it when you have a point that goes off of a graph. You can always look to go in the opposite direction. But remember, both have to be, the rise and the run, both have to be in the opposite direction in order to keep the line the same. Example number 3, y equals 1 over negative 3, x plus 1. So let's find our slope. And let's find our y-intercept. So go ahead and try to do this before I say what it is. So our slope is 1 over negative 3. How do we know that? Because negative 1 over 3 is the coefficient for x, or it's the number in front of x. What is our y-intercept? It's 1, and we know this because that is the constant. Okay, and our first step is to graph the y-intercept. So I'm going to put a point on the y-axis where positive 1 is. And now I use my slope to find my next point. So I rise and I run. I'm going to rise positive 1, so that would be up 1, and then run negative 3, so that's to the left. 1, 2, 3. Here's my point. Take my ruler, draw a straight line that goes right through the 2 points. And then I just put arrows on the ends, and I am done. For this problem, I took away the colors, so we can start thinking about the placement of the numbers and not just relying on the colors. Okay, so let's find the slope of this equation. Again, remember where it is. It should be the coefficient for the x. So this time we have 3 over 2 for our slope. And now our y-intercept. Remember that that's the constant, or the number by itself. So hopefully you said negative 5 is the y-intercept. Think about what the first thing is we're going to graph. And it's our y-intercept. So 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. Here's where my y-intercept will lie. And now I use my slope to get my next point. So my slope tells me to rise 3 up and run 2 to the right. So I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, run 1, 2. Here's where my point is. Take my ruler, do a nice straight line. So I'm not entirely sure where the video got cut off here, but we have our slope of 3 over 2. We know that's the slope because it is the coefficient, or the number in front of the x variable. And we have our y-intercept as being negative 5. And we know this because it's the number that is the constant, or by itself. And remember that that minus sign turns into a negative sign that stays with the 5. So our first step on our graph is to plot our y-intercept, or find negative 5 on the y-axis. From that point, we use our slope, which is rise over run. So we're rising up 3 and running to the right 2. Once we've plotted that point, we are using our ruler to make a nice straight line. For this last example, I'm going to give you a minute to figure it out before I give you the answers. So go ahead and look for the slope and the y-intercept. If you need time, you can pause the video and then restart it when you're ready. So the slope is going to be -4. Notice the negative sign in front of it. And remember, we need it to be a fraction, so we're going to put it over 1. And the y-intercept is -2. Again, you need to keep the sign that is in front of it. Okay, so now if we are graphing -2 on our y-axis, then our y-intercept, or the point that the line crosses the y-axis, will be right there where the green dot is. And then the slope of -4 over 1 would be go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the right 1. So here's our second point. And if you use your ruler, draw your line, your graph should look like this, and just put your arrows on the end. If you still have any questions, feel free to go back and watch this video again.